welcome. It's Refugee Roots Art at Home. I'm Anne. I hope you've been tuning in and doing some of these activities and they've been helpful for you to learn and do new things and keep you a bit busy in this lockdown. How are you doing out there? I hope everyone's hanging in there and we can ride this out and hopefully see each other soon. So today is week 6 of our art at home activities and it's our second watercolour week. You're going to need your watercolour tin and this A5 watercolour paper. So A4 is this size that we normally use for writing, and A5 is basically smaller. It's basically half of A4. So it's A4 that I've cut in half. So we have 2 sheets of this paper. It's a bit thicker than normal paper. Your brush and cup of water and your small patterns, which might look different. Everyone's has got 2 different patterns, so that's fine if they look different. Scissors, and what I've noticed I've left off the sheet accidentally is you also need your crayons or oil pastels. So they might look like this, or you might have some oil pastels. They both work just the same and either's fine. So let's begin. Hopefully you can see that. It's a bit difficult seeing the white sheet against the white desk, so I've just put this there just to help us notice what I'm doing. So step 1, on one of our watercolour papers, we're going to draw with warm coloured crayons. So last week when we did our colour wheel, on the sheet I mentioned this one, complementary colours, which are colours that are opposite each other on the wheel. So yellow and violet, or yellow and purple, red and green, and orange and blue are complementary colours. And then colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel. So if I just get a pencil and divide it up, colours on this half are warm colours. So the reds, the oranges, the yellow, and the reddy purple are warm colours. Colours on this half are cool or cold colours, so, or hot and cold. So you've got a purple, but it's more of a bluey purple, and then round to more of a yellowy green. So we're thinking about cold colours on this side, warm colours on this side today. So with our colours, if you've got white and black, that's okay. You can do white for warm, black for cool. If you've got something, pink is a warm colour, orange is a warm colour, red is a warm colour, and yellow. And then if you've got blues and greens, they're the cool colour. So we're going to start with any warm colours. So your pinks, your reds, your oranges, or your white. And we're just going to draw on this paper. Now, whatever we draw doesn't really matter. We're just testing this out at the moment, so it can be quite random. You might want to draw shapes. You might want to draw stars. We're just testing it out. Just notice how it feels to draw with it. And if you have something that you particularly want to, we're just testing out the crayon. Next, we get our next piece of watercolor paper, and we use our other crayon or pastel. So again, testing out the marks, any shapes that you want to make with it. Can be quite bold, so quite big. Can make a kind of pattern. Oh, I should have made clouds with this colour, that'd be quite nice. So yeah, any kind of shapes that you want to just testing this out with. Now, we're using the watercolour paint over the paper, and so for our bluey one, we'll choose a kind of bluey or green or purpley colour from this half of the colour wheel, and we'll paint that on. And if you notice, as we're painting, the paper absorbs the paint, but where the wax crayon is, it resists it, so it doesn't absorb. You can't paint over the wax crayon. If I show you with this green, maybe you can still see the line, and that's what we call wax resist. The crayon resists the paint. It doesn't soak it up. So that's a nice nice watercolor technique that is used a lot, and you might want to, whilst we're testing this out, put some water, just plain water, on the card before you've even put any paint on. So just cover it, and you can use quite a lot because this paper is a lot thicker than the paper that we used for the colour wheel. This is just normal printer paper. This is watercolour paper, so it will take a bit more paint and water on it. And then what you might like to do on the water whilst it's still wet is drop the paint on, but drop it on in little kind of bursts, little droplets off of your brush, so you can just see it dabbing onto the water, and the water carries the colour and makes it spread out a bit like ink. So you can experiment with that. You can mix it once that's dry. You can add some more paint on top, or you can paint normally, was what I would say, the usual way, mixing the colour first. So what have we got? Blues, greens, and we could mix our own bluey purple. So remember, that's red and blue, but more blue than red this time, and that can go onto our cold colour wax resist. So again, you'll be just testing it out, making marks, doesn't have to be super neat. We're using this to explore what watercolour can do. You can mix, once the paper's wet, you can mix on the paper too. So you can dab down, like I'm dabbing down some purple, and then get some green and dab some green next to it. So have a play. That's the cold one. Let's look at the warm one. So this one we're thinking about are red, yellow and orange colours. So I'm leaving that to dry whilst I'm doing this one. So it's good with watercolours, it does get quite wet and it can take a little while to dry, so it's good to work on a couple of things at once. So whilst that blue one is drying, I can work on this one, and this is going to be our warm orange, reds, yellows. You can blend them together, just using water on the paper once you put your colour down. So you can put your colour on the paper and then use water to blend them. And let's try again what we did before, just putting water on. Remember this? This technique is we wet the paper and then we put wet paint on top, so it's called wet on wet. And it starts to really blend and flow. And you can mix the colours again on the paper. Like so. So have a play with those. I'm going to leave this one to dry. And whilst we leave them both to dry, because they're both quite wet now, I'm going to paint these small pattern circles, and we've got two because we can do the same thing. We can do a cold colour one and a warm colour one. So you might want to do one that's blue and greens and one that's pinks and oranges. And why we need the scissors is because these have been ripped and your edge might be a bit torn there. So what I would suggest you do is you cut around the circles that you've got. I'm going to move these. Again, I'm going to move this one. We're letting them both dry. They just take a bit of time. I'm going to cut round this one. And paint these. So I'm going to carry on and paint these. I might put on some relaxing music, some kind of just chilled out mix, and paint both of these, spend some time, don't rush it, and I'll share them with you in the group, and I hope you do too. Take a picture of your warm and cold, wax resist, and your pattern circles. It'll be nice to see all of them that you've done. Some pictures of them, but yeah, I'm going to spend time doing this. I'll see you next week. Take care.